Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Suranjali Seal, and like I always say, if you are somebody that loves literature and is all about literature, then this is the channel for you. In our video today, we're going to discuss something new. We're going to talk about something new. We're going to start something new. You know that every Monday I upload educational videos that centers literature. We have talked about philosophers, we've talked about critics, we are sharing ideas, we're talking about writers and ages and the history of English literature. We are doing all of that. Now, I thought that I would want to dedicate one day in a week also to discussing books. Now, this is a channel that is heavily dedicated to the love of literature, and it would be incomplete without discussing books, right? So that's why I'm beginning with my series of book recommendations. I'm going to do it once every week, and every Monday, of course, we're going to have the educational videos. Today, I'm going to start with one book recommendation. It's a classic. I actually dedicated 1 week last week to Jane Austen. I read 3 of her books over the last week, and that's when I got the idea that why not share the ideas and discuss the books with you all. Now, I would be more than happy to actually know your ideas, your take on Jane Austen and her books and her books in general, and also the ones that I discuss in particular. So do comment in the comment section down below if you have anything to say about the books that she has written, any idea that would help somebody, any a take that would be an addition to the body of knowledge that already exists on the subject. I would be more than happy to welcome you to do that in the comment section. I think that it would be nice. We would get to know each other better, and in the same time, I think your opinions would also contribute significantly in the field. So I'm going to be discussing 3 books today. The first is obviously the classic Pride and Prejudice, which is one of my absolute favorites. The second is Sense and Sensibility, and the third is Mansfield Park, all by Jane Austen. Okay, so guys, the first book that I would want to recommend is Pride and Prejudice, and it's a must-read. It is a classic, and the reason why you should read it, it's because Jane Austen is a sheer genius when she's depicting the Victorian society. She belonged to an era when the Victorian age was actually slow. The Romantic age was slowly transitioning into the Victorian era. So she's a very socially conscious writer, and she knows everything that is going around. She notices everything that's going around in the society, and then she depicts that flawlessly in her novels. Now, I'll tell you, my first acquaintance with Pride and Prejudice, the first time that I read the book was when I was in the 7th standard. Now, in our school, we had this period which was called the library period. So we had one whole period where we were supposed to actually go to the library, school library, and pick out a book, rent a book, whatever, read it. Okay. So I went to my library period, and I still remember it was in the 7th standard. I was actually browsing through a rather dull bookshelf. Okay. It had blacks and browns, and it was a very dull colored bookshelf, I would say, which includes the books. Okay, so nothing was catching my eye, and the 7th standard, I didn't know any better. Okay, I was judging all the books by its covers, and there's one that actually caught my eye. It was a bright green colored book, and I immediately took it out, and thank God that it was Pride and Prejudice. I know I judged a book by its cover, and you're not supposed to do that, but I was right. This time I picked up the book and I looked at the cover, I browsed through it, and it was really pretty, and I rented it. I took it home, I read it, and I absolutely fell in love with the novel. Now, see, I did my bachelor's in English literature and then my master's in English literature also. So in the 7th standard, I did not have the understanding and the analytical ability which I have now. I'm actually bettering myself day by day also. We learn throughout our life, right? So in the 7th standard, I did not really understand the themes, important themes, motives, symbols, and the social issues that Jane Austen successfully deals with in this novel. So at that time, I enjoyed the novel because it was a haters turned lovers story. Okay, so nowadays there are many commercial novels that actually deal with haters turned lovers stories. So Pride and Prejudice is the one. It's the classic. Okay, so here we have this protagonist. Okay, we have Mr. Darcy and we have Elizabeth Bennet. Now we have subplots too that weave themselves successfully together into the main plot, but these 2 protagonists are the ones with a lot of pride and a lot of prejudice against each other. So you will see how that unfolds, how they're able to actually understand each other, better their relationship. There's so many plot twists as well, so it will keep you turning the page, and it is a classic for a reason. So alongside that, Jane Austen, I'll repeat this again and again, in all of her novels, she actually depicts the society as it is. She was writing at a time when the Romantic age was slowly transitioning into the Victorian era, and she was observing society, and she does that pretty precisely. She is a socially conscious writer. So when she depicts issues of class, she depicts issues of marriage, inheritance rights of women, property rights of women, educational rights of women successfully in the novel. She talks about these important social issues that engulfed British society as it was entering the Victorian era, and she does it flawlessly. She talks about these important social issues. She's talking about a time when the society was not as kind as it is today to women. It was a time when women did not have as much opportunities. They were not at par with men. They did not have educational rights, property rights. They were very vulnerable at the hands of society. So she talks about all of that in the novel. Apart from that, there's also when she's talking about all of these issues in the novel, when in the whole novel she gives witty remarks and she employs sarcasm. There's a sarcastic tone throughout the novel. So that is satire. She employs she employs satire to actually narrate the whole novel, and you'll like the novel because of that. It makes it very witty. It makes it you will understand what she's talking about. She talks about the superficiality, the duality of the British society at the time, and she does that by using wit, humor, and satire. And the reasons why you should be reading Pride and Prejudice is because of all of this. Because she writes, she employs satire, because she's writing, she's a social conscious writer, because she's dealing with social issues. It's not just a haters to turned lover story merely. She's talking about important issues as well in the novel. Fourth, because it's Jane Austen. She's one of those women who have contributed significantly in the world of literature. She is one of the women in the long list of women who actually paved the way for the life that we have today, okay, as women. So because of that, you have to read it. And fifth, because it's a classic, and it's a classic for a reason. It has stood the test of time, and it will continue to stand the test of time because it is a wonderfully written novel, and it displays the genius of Jane Austen. Now, the next book that I want to talk about is Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. Now, Sense and Sensibility is a book which actually completely justifies its name. Okay, so you have two sisters, is a story of two sisters, and it is rather a depiction of their character. But this depiction, okay, is kind of universal in nature. You'll find it in every one of us. So you have one sister who is the personification of sense, and then you have the other sister who is the personification of sensibility. What does that mean? One sister is always rational. She's very controlled. She's very in control of her emotions. She's very practical in her dealings with situations. And the other sister is very emotional. She's excited. She is very expressive, and she is very on point and very truthful about what she says. Okay, it's like what's in the heart, it's in the mouth. It's not calculated. Okay, so it's a story about these two sisters who actually encounter life as it comes to them, and you will see how it's sense against the same situation and its sensibility against the same situation. So you will see if sense works or sensibility works, or both work together. Now, see, my parents have always told me, and I was reminded of this like time and again when I was reading the novel. My mom and dad both tell me, okay, too much of anything is not good. Okay, they always tell me this, that too much of anything is not good. So, too much of sensibility is also not good. Too much always in control and not expressive and very practical all the time is also not good. And too much of sense and too much of sensibility is also not good. That is always emotional, always expressive, always just saying things without even thinking. Too much of anything is not good. So, you'll try to figure out and see that, like, you'll come to the conclusion that it's a balance between the two that you need. Now, you can understand this by the title itself, Sense and Sensibility. So it's a balance that we need in life, okay? So when you read the novel, you'll think, what's new to read? And when you'll read, at times you'll feel like it's dragging and lagging on and on, okay? You'll think that, okay, there were times when I thought that, okay, just get to the point. It's lagging too much. But towards the end of the novel is when I realized the importance of those small extensions, those small incidents which I thought were trivial but actually was leading to character development, was leading to it's those small situations that count. Big situations, you will have reactions, but even in small situations it actually depicts your character, how you react to them. So it's always sense and sensibility against the similar situations, and it is how they react to them, and gradually it leads to character development, and it also tells us it leads to the revealing of the character of the two sisters also. So you will see that whether it's good or it's bad. Now again, I'll repeat that Jane Austen is a very socially aware and socially conscious writer. So even in Sense and Sensibility also, she talks about the society at large. She talks about parties, and she talks about opinions of societies. If there's some incident that has happened in either of the sisters' life or lives, she talks about how the society would react. She even creates characters that is or are the society themselves. Okay, the characters they speak, and when they speak you'll realize it's the society speaking. So you'll have a lot of commentary, you'll have a lot of opinions, and these are all the opinions of the society, and she does it so beautifully in the novels. And when you talk about Sense and Sensibility, now you can have sense, like it's the sense and sensibility in the similar situations. So if a sense is always you'll see at times that sense is working and sensibility tries to back it up. Again, sensibility is working and then sense comes to balance it out. So those kind of nuances are also there, that sometimes it's too much sense, sometimes it's too much of sensibility, sometimes it's a balance between the two, sometimes it's support for each other also. So she deals with this throughout the novel. So at times you might feel that it is lagging, okay, but these are important episodes that you'll understand the importance of towards the end of the novel. Then she also talks about, of course, love. She talks about marriage. She talks about class. She talks about society, appearance versus reality. It is a constant in Pride and Prejudice also, appearance versus reality. Things don't seem to be what they are. Then you have gender roles also, even in Sense and Sensibility. And finally you also have this, she talks about the issue of marriage. She talks about, sometimes when it comes to marriage and expectations between the two counterparts, she talks about how always it doesn't seem to be what it is. Chances are things might be very different. Chances are scenarios can be different. Chances are what you see on the surface, in the depth, there's something else to it. Also, she talks about this secrecy. In Pride and Prejudice, she doesn't deal with it as much, but in Sense and Sensibility, there's a lot of secrecy involved. So the secrets are revealed at a time when even I went like, what? Okay, this was my reaction, like, what is this even possible? Is this, I mean, how can this be? So you'll have those plot twists also, where when the secrets are revealed, it comes as a shock. And like I said, you'll feel like it's progressing gradually, the novel, and when the secrets are revealed, they're revealed at a time when you least expect them to be revealed. Okay, so this is the Sense and Sensibility. So again, why do you have to read Sense and Sensibility? Because social commentary, of course, because it talks about Sense and Sensibility. You learn a lot about it. It talks about emotional control. It talks about a balance between the two senses, the sense and sensibility, emotion and practicality. Then she talks about the society. She talks about the opinions of the society. It'll give you a sneak peek into the Victorian era itself. She also talks about parlors and drawing rooms and how they are, while in Pride and Prejudice it's about balls and parties, here she actually talks about the homes. She describes the homes, the parlors, and of course she does that in most of her novels, but here it is it's like when you are staying with the two sisters in their house, and when you're going and meeting their relations, you'll feel like you're meeting them in person. That's how you'll feel when you read Sense and Sensibility. When you're reading Pride and Prejudice, you will feel like it's almost like a fairy tale. When you're reading Sense and Sensibility, you'll actually feel like you're with these people. You can feel for them. You'll feel like you're part of their family itself. So that is Sense and Sensibility. Now let's move on further. Now, the other novel, the last but not the least one, which I'm going to talk about today by Jane Austen, is Mansfield Park. I believe that Mansfield Park is it is a more complicated novel by Jane Austen, and in comparison to her other novels, so it is slightly more complicated in that it deals with contrasts. I believe it is a novel of contrasts because she actually talks about multiple layers of contrast, and I'll explain how. So you have the main protagonist, her name is Fanny, and she comes from a very humble background. Now Fanny goes from this humble background and she goes to live with her aunt and uncle. I'm not going to give spoilers, but I'm just giving an understanding. I'm just trying to make you understand. So she's the protagonist who goes to live with her aunt and uncle who are rich. So she comes from a humble background and she goes to live with her aunt and uncle who are wealthy. Now the thing is, you might argue that, okay, what's there? She's going from a humble background to a rich background, so it must be like life is settled for her. But no, you know, when she's going from this background, considering her age and everything, when she goes to live with her aunt and uncle, she has to adjust to a new house, new people, new mentality. So it is an adjustment for her. Even people from wealth, when there's a shift from wealth to a humble station in life, but if there's that shift, that also demands adjustment. If there's a shift from a humble background to a wealthier background, that also demands adjustment of a different kind. So Fanny struggles with all of that. Now her aunt and uncle have children, and it's like the dynamics between Fanny and the children, and the dynamics between the children themselves also highlight a lot, okay, about their character. So on the one hand, again, it's a novel of contrast. From a poor background, Fanny goes to a rich background, and the adjustment about that. It is about money and marriage. She talks about fickle hearts, how relations between fickle hearts, okay, how they impact their lives, okay, all of that she deals with. She satirizes that also. Then she talks about manner versus morality, okay, manner versus morality. She talks about inheritance versus meritocracy, that who do you give your inheritance to? Somebody who is entitled, or you give it to somebody who actually has the merit, or who is actually meritorious, okay? So all of that, inheritance versus a meritocracy. Then there's nature versus nurture. Nature, Fanny's nature, she comes from a particular place, a particular background. She has a particular mentality. Now she has to live with another set of people with a different mentality. And Mansfield Park it kind of shows it kind of sculpts her. Mansfield Park is the mansion where she stays, of her aunt and uncle. She goes to stay there. She encounters people, and those people have an impact on her mind. Mansfield Park is the place where she's shaped by the incidents that take place there. She's shaped in a way by Mansfield Park itself. So you see nature versus nurture. What is her nature, and how she's nurturing herself as she's growing up, and in these different situations also. Then she talks about Jane Austen talks about the country versus the city. That she talks about how the country life and city life differ from each other. On the one hand, the city life seems very alluring, and on the other hand, again, country life seems very simple and alluring. It seems peaceful. But again, I said Jane Austen is a socially conscious writer, so she knows the negative points of both. She knows that the London or the city life is not as free of problems, and she knows that the country life also is not free of corruption. It has its own problems. So she deals with that contrast also. So all in all, I feel Mansfield Park is a novel of contrast. It depicts beautifully. Of course, it talks about Fanny Price and how she she grows up in this Mansfield Park, all the incidents that go in, all the people that influence her mind, how she actually adjusts to them all, but also talks about these important contrasts, okay, which make us think about life. So this is Mansfield Park. If you think that this is the novel for you, you can go for it. I think that it'll help you think. There's this, how Fanny is integrated into the world around her, her struggle, her mentality, how is it shaped, what are her principles, what are the principles around her, and what are the principles she keeps, what she notices, what she doesn't notice. It's pretty interesting. So this is Mansfield Park. And with this, we're done with the 3 recommendations that I had to give. We talked about Pride and Prejudice, we talked about Sense and Sensibility, and finally we talked about Mansfield Park. These are the 3 books that I read over the last week, and next week I'll be back with another recommendation. I want to discuss Wuthering Heights and Rebecca. They revolve around the Gothic elements also, and I would really want to discuss them with you. They're very, very interesting. So I hope that I'm able to do that. If you want me to actually read any other book, if you want to recommend any books that I should review, then please do comment in the comment section down below and tell me which book would you want me to read and review, and I would do that, and I would discuss them with you. This is sort of like a small little book club that we have online on my channel, and I think that this togetherness is really, really exciting. I'm really excited for the journey that you and I are taking together. So with this, we're done with this video for today. I'll come back with the educational video on Monday again. Till we meet again, I hope that you stay healthy and happy. See you in the next one.